Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, viewers, wherever you're tuning in from. I'm Kaddy Jammeh, your host, and welcome to episode 5 of the Profile Show. I'm here tonight with my co-host, Lamin and Kaddy, who's also behind the scenes producing this show. Before I carry on, though, I just wanted to say congratulations to my co-host, Lamin and Kaddy, who got married in the last couple of months. So currently newlywed. Congratulations, my brother and my co-host. Last month, we were unable to air online due to unforeseen personal circumstances beyond our control. But hey, we are back. And just before we dive into tonight's show, I just wanted to remind us again, episode 4, what happened in episode 4 in August. We had the amazing and awesome female tech CEO, Dr. Jojandu Tambedu. She graced our platform. And what a conversation we had with Dr. Jojo. She offered a powerful insight on leading with empathy while driving impactful results, which reminded us that empathy and effectiveness aren't mutually exclusive. They are a powerful duo in leadership. But tonight, our guest brings a truly global perspective to our conversation. Born and raised in Churchilltown, Gambia, he has spent nearly 20 years in the United States, where he earned both his undergraduate and graduate degree. He currently serves as a senior program analyst and team lead at the Office of Inspector General for the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, overseeing inspections and evaluations for USAID, the Inter-American Foundation, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, and the U.S. African Development Foundation. Before joining USAID, he held key policy roles at the U.S. Government Accountability Office, the Department of Homeland Security, and the famous NASA. And over a decade, he's been shaping minds at Bluefield State University in West Virginia, where he teaches courses ranging from constitutional law and political economy to international relations and public policy. Please welcome to the Profile Show, episode 5, a scholar, analyst, and educator whose career bridges continents and disciplines. Dr. Sulayman Njie, welcome to the Profile Show.
Thank you, Kaddy. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So Dr. Njie has warned me before the start of the show not to call him Dr. Njie. We are keeping things very, very informal here in-house. So we're going to go with Sulayman or Saul, whichever one we flick with, right?
Right.
Oh, good. Thank you so much for accepting our invite to come to this platform. And to give us a bit more insight around what you do, who you are, get to know you a little bit more. Lamin, my co-host, hello.
Hello, Kaddy. Hello, Sulayman, doctor, but prefer to be called Sulayman. Welcome to the Profile Show with Lamin and Kaddy.
Thanks for having me on.
Great, thank you. So Sulayman or Saul, I'll go with Saul. So Saul, just before we go into more details, do you want to just give us a little bit of background into your childhood growing up in Gambia? What was it like before moving to the US?
Sure. So I was actually born in Tujareng, the capital of Combo South. I know the Gunjur people would not like to hear that, but I was born in Tujareng. My mom is from Tujareng. My dad was from Banjul. I was born in Tujareng, but I grew up in Churchilltown. So we moved to Churchilltown when I was probably 4 or 5 years old. So that's where I spent my formative years. But we went back and forth. between Tujareng and Georgetown. And I started my my nursery school at a Nyakwe Nursery School, which was founded by the folks at PDOIS, specifically Auntie Amisila, who started a nursery school there was one in Bundung and the one in Ibo Town. So I went to the one in Ibo Town. And then after that, I went to Serakunda Primary School in Serakunda, then St. Teresa's Middle School, then St. Augustine's High School. And then after that, I completed my A-levels in law. And whilst I was doing my A-levels in law, I was also working at the courthouse in Banjul. And then right after that, I left for the United States. And that's my background in Gambia. And I would say, I came here young to the States, but my life in the Gambia was not any different from most people growing up between Serakunda and Tujareng. There were a lot of differences though between Serakunda, Tujareng, of course Banjul too. I had family in Banjul, but I spent most of my time between Serakunda and Tujareng. Very different though. That time Tujareng was a very rural place. Now it's a town, probably as developed as Serakunda is. But back then, I remember our family home was the last home before you have the ocean. Because after that, all you have was just, narcos and that kind of stuff and a lot of brush. And we used to go, Bambang demo. I don't know, like whether your people in Bakau know what the Bambang is. But
I think we do.
Okay. So there's a place in Tujarang called Dudu Koli. So it was very like thick forest. It's really hard to imagine now what with all these developments, and of course there was Fanda Tinting as well, where they had the shrine, which was under the supervision of the Jabankuna family, and then Serakuna, of course, was mostly playing soccer and that kind of stuff, and being a teenage shenanigans in high school, just doing dumb stuff like all teenage kids did. But yeah, that was my background, and I grew up around people who were interested in who were, I would say they were educated, right? I had uncles and my dad and everybody around me. The education was around. I was reading books when I was probably like in the third or fourth grade. So, and my cousins who were then at Newsred and my siblings too went to Newsred. They used to bring books from their high school, like Meet Me in Conakry by Samsar and The Concubine, and I was reading these things, and and I was like in primary 4 or primary 3, I can't remember, and so I've always been fascinated with they've always fascinated me, and just knowing the world beyond Gambia, really, it just piqued my fancy. So education was the route for me because I was bad at everything else other than school. So for me, that was the easy way out. But yeah, that was my background growing up in the Gambia. And then I came to America. I did my undergraduate studies at Bluefield State University out of West Virginia. That's where I'm teaching at right now. Okay. And so after that, I went to Virginia Tech. That's where I got my master's and PhD from.
Right. Oh, thanks for sharing that. That sounds like very fun memories of growing up in Gambia. Because all those activities that you've mentioned that you were doing when you were in Tujareg, I bet youngsters don't do that anymore nowadays with social media. No one got time to do that. But yeah, I remember growing up, we used to do a lot of fun activities outside. You don't even want to go home at the end of the day, like because you got so much to do with your friends outside. So you did mention earlier that you did work at the courthouse just before leaving for the US. Was that your first employed like adulting role that you had in the Gambia? Okay.
Yeah. So that was my first big boy job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a court clerk in the family court for Justice Agnes Dorji. She's actually now a judge on the Supreme Court in Ghana. But yeah, they used to have Commonwealth judges in the Gambia who will come from the Commonwealth countries to provide and help with our, the judgeships and whatnot back in it. I don't think they have that anymore, but that used to be a thing. Really, yeah, she was great. She was really nice to me. She was very nice to me, and I got to meet a lot of lawyers. Then I wanted to, law school was always it was in the back of my head. That was not what I wanted to do though. but our options were limited then, just being in the Gambia, what you could study. But law school was like, was something I was interested in, but it wasn't like what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a lawyer, but law school was an option. And I knew I could do it because all I needed to do was just read and write, and I was good at that.
Right. Okay. Okay. So that role didn't influence what you studied today, or did it?
I would say there is a nexus because when I came to America, my bachelor's was my undergrad was in political science. So
Right.
I was still looking at the option of law school, but I always wanted to do something to do with diplomacy and something to do with economics and policy. That's always what I wanted to do because, I mean, I had uncles who were doing that. Specifically, I actually had one uncle who was, during Jawara's time, he was permanent secretary, and then Jammeh's time, he was minister, and then he was ambassador. I had uncles who worked for the United Nations. So I wanted to, that was the life I wanted to live. I wanted to be a diplomat. I mean, that was something I wanted to do. So that was always something that was at the back of my head when I came to America, because that's why I studied what I studied here. But in America, political science also gives you that avenue to go to law school, because the way political science is structured here is a little bit different. So that's why now I teach constitutional law. I teach state and local government law because it is all, because the politics is really embedded in the whole system. Right? And my A levels in law really helped me when I came to America, because American constitutional law, the basis of it is the common law of England. That is still the basis of it, even though it's different, but it's still the basis of American constitutional law. So if you can understand, and coming here, I already had a good understanding of because I took a lot of courses in when I was doing my A levels. So I was already prepared, and I had a good understanding of the American system even before I got here. I mean, when I was in high school, I was one of those kids who would skip class. Actually, one of my good friends that actually really pushed me in high school, he was from Bakau, Madi Fati. Madi was one of those people who mastered the whole world map. So we literally had these debates back then, and just being there with him, going to St. Augustine's, we'll spend, hours in the library. We'll skip class to go to the library. So even before I came to America, I knew all the states in America. I knew all the state capitals in America. I mean, even at that time, I knew all the governors before I even came here. Yeah, so it was really fascinating. So when I got here, my political science professors, of course, is Sulayman from the Gambia. But then I know all this stuff, like they were just confused. But I was already prepared before I even got here. I was way prepared before I even got here. I was already ready for all that stuff,
That's great. That is great. So you already prepped everything that you knew what you wanted to know before you got to the US, and when you got there, it was almost like smooth sailing for you. Then that's good.
Yeah.
That's great. Lamin.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Njie. I know you don't like being called out, but thanks for joining us. This conversation is shaping up really, really nicely to give us your background, how it all started for you in the Gambia, education. Obviously, you're born in Tujareng, second capital of Kampong South. Because I think Gunjur is the capital. It's subjective, we might argue it's not the case, but so very interesting. I think this show is all about trying to get to know our guests with a view to inspiring the next generation, if you like. So if you see Dr. Sulayman Njie up there, how did it start? What did he went through? Starting off, obviously being born in the Gambia and now working in the United States. You teach political science at university, as well as working as a program analyst for USAID. What is it like? Obviously, being a lecturer in the political science context in the United States, because this might be different from the Gambia. How is it like teaching political science, as well as working as a program analyst for USAID? So you must be a very, very busy man.
Yeah, so it's very interesting because teaching is very theoretical, right? Whereas my job from 9 to 5 is practical. Like, these are the two differences, right? I really enjoy it. I mean, I was just looking at my log the last time. I realized I've taught over 1,000 students. I'm like, wow,
Wow.
crazy.
That is impressive.
Incredible.
I know. And, I didn't never even thought about it because, like, for 5 years, I was a full-time university professor. That's all I was doing. And I was teaching full courses, 4 courses per semester. And it never dawned on me that I was teaching this many students. And yeah, so it was really, it's really interesting teaching political science and also being a practitioner of, being in that environment as well, right? So I've spent exclusively all of my career, except for the teaching part, in political circles, right? So even before I went to NASA, my first interaction here in America with politics was working for then Senator Rockefeller out of West Virginia. So I was a legislative aide on Capitol Hill for Senator Rockefeller, and that time Obama was senator, and that was when Bush was president. I remember that. I was starstruck rather, as a political animal like me, just being on Capitol Hill. And that was like, I think, a couple of years after coming from Gambia too. So that was insane. So it was just seeing all these people, being in that environment. So even before I started teaching political science, I was already involved in the political process. And that time after that, I also worked for then Governor Manchin, before he became Senator Manchin out of West Virginia. So I worked for him at the state capitol in Charleston, West Virginia, as a legislative aide as well, mostly looking at like economic development and stuff for people in rural West Virginia. So using those experiences and then teaching it is really neat, because one thing, especially when I was at the Government Accountability Office. So Government Accountability Office is the research and investigative arm of the U.S. Congress. I spent 6 years at the Government Accountability Office. And during that time, I was also teaching public administration, political science, and whatnot. The American political administration is based on the Government Accountability Office's work.
Right.
It's really based on that. So if you understand that, it's very easy for you to teach American public administration, because the Comptroller General of the United States sets this tone at that level, right? Wow. So teaching is me really flexing my intellectual muscles, right? Passing on knowledge and, learning stuff too. I think people forget how much you learn from new people, like all the time, students, right? Because they bring so much too that you don't know about, right? They bring a lot of stuff to the discourse and whatnot. And then the practical side is me writing policy papers, doing research and stuff for the federal government, and advising the Congress and the White House on how to improve performance of agencies and how to actually help alleviate X, Y, and Z. So it's these two combinations, right? Where it's very theoretical, but even if theoretical can be practical too, right? Because you're impacting lives of students who end up getting, I just clocked my, I think, 7th PhD student who graduated since I started teaching. And I can even count how many lawyers at this point. So it's really nice. It's very satisfying to sit. And I've also been able, at the university, I brought several Gambians there who came and graduated there, and they're doing their own things now in life. So, it's really neat. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds very fulfilling, very interesting as well, having the practical experience of working in the political scene and then transferring that into lecturing at university. So that's quite good. I understand you obviously work as a policy program analyst for USAID. Probably been doing that for under 2 years. Can you tell us a bit more about that? What does that entail? Because that looks like it's different from lecturing at university in political science.
Oh, definitely. It's very different. So as a program analyst, my job, I work in the office of the Inspector General. So the Inspector General, we do inspections, evaluations, audits, and auditing of federal government agencies. Specifically, in my role now, it's mostly USAID, and you probably know USAID is technically a dinosaur now. So we are like in between USAID and also the State Department. So technically, I am informally now a State Department employee, which is interesting. But my job, basically from 9 to 5, includes a lot of crunching of numbers. Also a lot of reading and writing, and also a lot of analysis. And I mean a whole lot of analysis. So you should be, to be able to do what I do is to be able to understand, to gather a lot of information. Basically what AI does now, right? Is to gather a lot of information and break it down into tiny morsels of like things that people can understand and digest, right? So in my job at USAID, I mean, I was in sub-Saharan Africa, Southern and Eastern Africa, and Europe in June and July, basically inspecting some of the USAID food items that were in Durban, South Africa, in Djibouti, and in the Horn of Africa. So I was there looking at that, basically to making sure that they're housed properly, number one, but number two, that the taxpayers, American taxpayers, are spending the money, their money's worth. They're getting their money's worth for it, and also to make sure that the food items are delivered to the United Nations agencies like the World Food Program and whatnot before they expire. So that's one thing I do. I also inspected and also evaluated the effectiveness of some of the USAID. So when the war in Ukraine started, the US government and Starlink, which is owned by Elon Musk, with SpaceX, they got into an agreement, a partnership to deliver terminals, thousands of them, Starlink terminals to Ukraine because they didn't have the grid system. So my job was to follow and track where those terminals were, and then report them back to the US government, specifically to the Congress and the White House. So the US government, most of what we do is contracted. So it's mostly contracted. So what I look at is the contracts, what underpin those contracts, the money and the way they're allocated and the way they're spent, and basically track that to basically its end. And then if I see anything that requires improvements or whatnot, I'll offer recommendations. So I work in a team. I'm the team lead, but I work with a team of analysts. So I have some, in South Africa that I work with, in El Salvador, in Ukraine. So I had people from, all across the globe that I work with because they're stationed there. Some of them are foreign service officers stationed in our embassies overseas. So I work with them to make sure that we're coordinating things accordingly. And also we're holding our executive branch accountable for how they're spending the US taxpayers' money. So that's just the gist of it, but it's more complex than that. But I think that's one of the best ways to explain what we do.
Yeah. So in a layman's term, somebody who really hasn't got a clue, doesn't know what AI is, what number crunching is in that level. How would you summarize or basically explain in a layman's term what your role as a program analyst for USAID,
Basically helping the government improve its performance. I think that's the best way I can put it. Right, basically helping the government improve its performance, like the executive branch agency, especially in this case, USAID, because when I was at the Government Accountability Office, I was doing the same thing, but I was inspecting and auditing so many agencies, not just USAID or the Inter-American Foundation. In some cases, we're looking at 15 or 13 government departments, agencies, right? Most of my work at that time, I would say at least the last 3 years at the Government Accountability Office, I was mostly doing nuclear work. So I was doing mostly nuclear policy and nuclear security. So I was looking at the effectiveness of the nuclear sites we have in the United States, especially the ones west of the Mississippi River. So I was looking at, and for a British, this might sound insane, but the amount of money we spend in this country is mind-blowing. So for example, to clean 6 nuclear sites for 10 years, the US government allocated $100 billion to just clean those sites. To clean them. Yeah. Wow. So when I heard that, Liz Truss was kicked out because of $40 billion, I'm like, that's what we use for one nuclear site to clean it in the United States, right? So, for example, one of the biggest nuclear sites is Hanford in Washington State, in south of Seattle, and the government allocated about $46 billion to basically clean that nuclear site. So my job was to make sure that they're doing that step by step and in accordance also with the contract they have with the federal government, because the federal government doesn't do these things; they contract them out. USAID does not really deliver food. USAID gives it to the UN agencies, CRS, and all those entities to execute, but that means they actually have to have a contract with them for them to be able to do that. You know what I mean, right? And NGOs as well. So the US government, if you look at it, is a vehicle. I mean, it's not any different for the most part with the Gambian government too. It's all about procurement, right? So it's all about spending money. It's tax and spend, and that's what we do here. So again, my job is to help improve the performance of government agencies and to hold them accountable, basically.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Doctor, for that overview of what you do in terms of lecturing as a political science at university and also as a program analyst for USAID. I'll hand you over to our co-host, Kaddy, to take us to the next stage of our very, very interesting conversation with Dr. Sulayman Njie.
Thanks, Lamin. So what you mentioned there, what you just said there, what you just summarized there, in a nutshell, is holding, like, agencies, charitable agencies, responsible and accountable for what they said that they're going to do with the money that the US government has given them, in a nutshell. So, you've given examples of programs that you analyze, as part of your role, where you have to do inspections and make sure you do the auditing and everything. Has there been an occasion, again, if you can share within reason, has there been like a case or an occasion where you have audited or inspected a certain program and you didn't feel that it had your approval, but then it still went ahead?
Can you repeat that question?
So, has there been an occasion in your role where you have inspected or audited a program, say a developmental aid program, but then through your findings, it didn't live up to the standard, the requirement, and what they said they were going to do? So, and what did you do? Like, did you still approve it? Did you have to sign it off? Did you have to actually sign the program off, or what did you do?
So my job is not to sign up. In most cases, my job is to provide oversight. So, for example, and in all of my work, for the most part, I'll find a deficiency that I'll provide a recommendation for them to implement. Usually, that's how it works, right? So, what underpins my work? There are four things. You talk about findings.
Yeah.
My work, there are four elements of a finding in my work. That is what you said, the standard, the criteria, right? The condition of what we're looking at, the cause of the problem, right? And the ramification, that is the effects of those things. And whenever I have those four things in line, I provide recommendations, and of course they will implement it. They don't have a choice. They would, they don't have a choice, because if not, what's going to happen? The Congress, so the Congress might withhold funding for them.
Yeah.
So they'll make sure they don't. But I think the other thing we do too, while we're doing this work, this research and this data collection, we're coordinating with the entities we're auditing or we're inspecting or we're evaluating. We're talking to them. So when we find stuff that is worth a recommendation, we'll go back to them and have a conversation and tell them we have a recommendation and this is why. And we'll also expect them to give us their feedback, whether they agree with our recommendations or not. But that doesn't change the facts. As long as we have those facts, whether they agree or not, it's totally immaterial, right? What matters is that those findings stand, right? So, and those findings stand because we have solid findings, solid background, solid standards, which is basically the criteria, and the condition and the cost and the effects of these things on the U.S. taxpayers. So, for the most part, no, we don't. They don't have a choice. What options do they have? They'll have to implement them. And if they don't, we keep track of the recommendations we provide that they haven't implemented. If they don't, then the Congress would have to step in. And they usually do. But we don't get to that point. Like, you don't want us to get to that. You really don't want to get to that point. So everybody works together to make sure, because the way they look, the way the entities we're evaluating, the way we work, we're not, well, we have a lot of power, right? And they know that. But we're not enemies. We are all working for the same government, right? We're all trying to help improve whatever you have there, right? So in so many cases, that's how they look at it. Sometimes they actually ask, for example, I was in South Africa with my team looking at the food warehouses that USAID has over there. The folks down there asked us to come and see them. They're the ones who ask us to come. The contractor themselves asks us to come and see the food warehouses because we have tens of millions of dollars of food items sitting there, and they don't even know what was going on with their contract. And then, they were worried that if we don't get the food items out on time, that they will expire and they will, their best use by date and all that stuff. So in some cases, agencies actually ask us to come in because we know what to look for. We know where the bodies are buried, right? And sometimes they ask us to come and help them evaluate the effectiveness of their programs. Sometimes they actually do, because we're rendering a service that is helpful, and a service that are actually going to help them be better, because they don't want to have a messed up program and then within a few years the Congress finds that out and then literally cancels everything. They don't want to do that.
No, definitely.
For the most part, I would say, it can get contentious. Because it can get really contentious sometimes, because sometimes the contracts are not black and white, so you might have a lot of like back and forth. And for example, if you look at the Starlink terminals that went to Ukraine, USAID really had a contract with DAI. So DAI was the entity that was out there doling out the terminals, but the problem is they didn't think Ukraine was going to survive more than 3 months. So there was no evaluation or monitoring of where those terminals are. They just dumped them and left. We don't usually do that because when the US government provides something, we monitor the life cycle of that food, whether it's a food item or a cell phone. It really doesn't matter what it is, right? But they didn't do that. So we made sure we held them accountable for it. They didn't appreciate that because they were trying to explain. We're like, we totally understand. But we want to make sure in the future this doesn't happen because conflicts are going to happen. And if those happen, what are you going to do? You're just going to take millions of dollars of US equipment and just dump them and leave because what? So we want to make sure that, they're doing what they're supposed to do.
Right. Okay. Thanks for sharing that. How critical would you say the role of a program analyst is in international development?
It's massive. And international development too, it depends on where. Like, are you on the implementer side, like the UN agencies, or are you on the USAID side? It's different, right? So from the USAID side, we're the ones giving out the money. So
it's very important.
So the UN agencies are receiving the money, and then implementing what we want them to do. So they also have their own program analysts who do certain things, right? So it depends where, and even from the US government side, program analyst can be a very blanketed term, right? It's a very broad term. Like US government, everybody's an analyst basically, right? That's what we use for everybody. So I would say in our field, it's very important, it's crucial because we are the custodians, or we are the people who are tracking how we're spending our money. We're the ones who are tracking the effectiveness of these programs. For example, a USAID program established the first elementary school in Kiang, in the 1980s. And that money was provided to CCF or CRS, one of those. Actually, it was
That's Gambia, right? Talking about Gambia. Yeah.
In the Gambia. This was in the 80s. And the money was provided to ActionAid. USAID, the folks who were in my current capacity that they were in back then, it was those program analysts' job to make sure that they meet their targeted population and that they achieved their goals. And one of those goals was to get maybe, let's say, I'm just, spitballing here, but like, let's say 100 students every year, or maybe 10 students enroll every year. And out of that 10, maybe 4 are women or girls rather, right? Those are goals that they set, right? Yeah. So it's my job as a program analyst to make sure that they meet those goals, like ActionAid does, right? You know what I mean, right? And if they don't, then we hold them accountable, right? Yeah. So that means my job includes a lot of interactions with nonprofits and UN agencies, the World Bank, the IMF, those entities, right? So, but I'm coming from a different side because we are the ones who are providing the money. It's very different. We're the ones providing.
So you got the power here.
Correct. And sometimes the relationships, like there's some kind of an imbalance, to be honest. But my job, they usually don't want to see us there because usually when I'm there, I'm there to see how effective things are. So you really don't want to see me for the most part. I'm like the last person, honestly, in the UN agency will probably want to deal with on that at that level, because I am there to inspect and see how things are being spent, how effective these programs are you meeting the goals of the US government? Because any the US government, let's say for example, every year the US Congress would decide that this year our focus is going to be on malaria or cholera. That's it. And then they would take, let's say, $20 billion or $15 billion or $10 billion. It really doesn't matter, and give it to WHO. So that means now it's my job to track that money.
Yeah.
It's my job to track that money. And I mean, that's literally my job now, to make sure I'm tracking the money, but also to make sure that they're effectively executing the goals of the US Congress, which is basically to eradicate cholera or malaria or whatever, right? So usually, like, that's my job as a program analyst on my side of the fence. On the other side, they're implementers. They're the ones implementing it. So it's a little bit different. So, and it also depends on the federal government agency too, because everybody's an analyst with the US government. Whether you're FBI or CIA or you're in Homeland Security, we all use the term analyst. But it depends on what you're analyzing. I'm analyzing development aid. That's what I'm doing. Other people are analyzing something different.
Okay, thank you. Lamin?
Very interesting, Doctor. Enjoying this conversation. But I wanted to ask you, given the current digital transformation, is there any tools that you're excited about to actually, obviously technology is making life easy for people, regardless of what discipline, what area you are. Are there any tools that you are obviously very excited about in light of the current digital transformation? You mentioned earlier AI. Is there specific tools that you're actually very, excited about that could potentially, help you do your job better than you're currently doing it?
For sure. And as somebody who grew up in the digital age, I want to provide like an anecdote here. So when I was doing in the States, the PhD process is a little bit different from England, right? So here you take 2 years of coursework, and then you go and collect your data and then come back, analyze it. But then you have 2 major exams. These are exams. Like one of them is like a 1-week exam where they put you in a room alone with just books. That's it. No internet, nothing. And then every day you write a 15-page paper, right? So that's literally what it was for 5 days for me. When I was doing that, my dissertation chair that year, they decided that they would give us access to JSTOR, which is it's a web, it's a, it's a, you can get whatever, yeah. And then they also
so I'll give you, obviously, it's like a lot of people see Google, but then there's another side of Google that not everybody sees.
People don't know, exactly. And they also allow me to use my do file in Stata. Stata is a statistical software that we use in social sciences to do our statistical analysis. And then I was able to use R because my PhD, I use R. So that means I had to code, like actually code. So I needed to use that for my dissertation. So they were confused because that was not their experience, right? She was explaining to me when she was doing her doctorate, they had to haul in wheelbarrows of books into those rooms. And whenever they need to cite, they will go and review. So that means they will be in that room for like 15, 14 hours just to do that. I was able to do that with just 1 click, right? And I had all my analysis in a do file with Stata, right? And then the other part with R Studio, right? So, R is just a fascinating. I haven't used R in a while, but it was just fascinating just using it, right? So today I would say I can be old school too a little bit, right? I still like spreadsheets. And I use the pivot table a lot. The pivot table makes life very easy for me to create things and whatnot and share it with people because I'm in between 2 generations, right? Like we're 1980s, kids, right? So we had generation of people in my office who really don't even still understand the, Excel, right? Even though they're analysts, but they're using a very different methodology. And then I had the younger generation who don't even have the patience for any of this stuff because, you just rather have AI do everything for you. So
Yeah.
It's that balance that you need to find. I think AI really helps, though. It really, really does. Because where AI helps, because most of my work is consuming a lot of large volumes of data and information and distilling down to tiny morsels. AI can do that for you much faster, right? You can literally aggregate all these sources and then have your bullets, bam, bam, bam. But that also means you have to understand what you're asking for. That means you have to understand the information, right? You have to understand what you're looking for. That also takes kind of years of understanding what you're dealing with, right? If you're new to this work and you're trying to use AI, you're probably going to use it wrong because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're looking for. You don't even know what the information is, right? I would say AI is one tool that I'm really excited about in a way, not for writing because it's very dry. And it's very, you can tell if somebody, so that's why even this semester, my last semester, that's when I started it. My students asked them to write me 2 papers, their term papers, one AI and one non-AI. That's the only way I can literally make sure that they're doing the actual work, not AI doing it for them.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, because that's the only way. Because AI is helpful. It helps. It can help you get sources and stuff like that. Once you use it for writing, we're on a whole different ball game. Because you're really doing a disservice to yourself. But that might even be obsolete. You might not even need to have, even for education, for example. At some point, the kids, do they even need to learn how to do basic math? Why do they need that at some point? Like, really, why do they need it? Right? It's just like when the calculator was invented, everybody was like, oh my God, like that's going to make people lazy. Sure.
Yeah.
But if you can use a calculator, why use your brain? Humans are lazy. We want easy stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
I
AI
agree.
is really, Go ahead.
No, I just said I agree completely. If I can get something made for me easily, why would I have to do the manual aspect of that? I just get the ready-made.
No,
That's what AI
exactly.
is doing. AI is providing us nowadays. Like you said, if you know how to use it properly, and if
Yes.
you know what you're asking for, because there's a lot of information embedded in AI, so you have to know what you're looking for, what you're asking for, and how to use the information. But yeah, go on.
No, that's true. Like you gotta know how to use the information. At the federal level, at the government level, we're not using AI right now. We don't trust it because we deal with a lot of sensitive information, and AI is whatever you feed it, literally. So, and we
Yeah.
don't have control over those things. So there are agencies within the federal government, like Department of Defense, who have now incorporated Grok, AI Grok, into their systems. We haven't yet. I mean, we have Copilot, but we don't use it for any analysis or anything. We have it part of Microsoft basically, but we don't use it for the analysis. So we haven't gotten the approval yet. So we're still using our brains. We're still doing the analysis. But I would say AI would really help a lot in just distilling because every job you're looking at 1-2 contracts. These federal government contracts are like some of them are like 100 pages long, 200 pages long. So it takes a lot of time to glean and go through these contracts to make sense of what the contracts are about, and also how to hold these branches accountable for their actions. With AI, you can literally distill that within a few minutes. Like literally, you can do that for you. But we're not there yet at the federal level. We have some pilots at the Department of Defense, which is now Department of War, but we don't have it yet at USAID and at the State Department. I don't think so. So at least we don't have it at USAID. We don't have it yet. I mean, we have Copilot, but we haven't used it yet, and we don't have the approval to use it. So, but I think it will be AI is just going to revolutionize the way we even deal with each other, the way we actually teach. Actually, I started an article a few months ago, then I stopped. I mean, life happens, being an adult, it's not easy. It's not easy. But I started an article actually just on AI. I started it because I was inspired by one of my friends, Amran Gay. He had an interview with Peter Gomez. And I was like, wow, actually, I should write about this. So I started. It's actually in I do all my writings here on my phone, so it's on my notepad somewhere. I'll pick it up one of these days and wrap it up. But one of the things I was going to ask is, what kind of education befits a democracy, right? In this age, in this 21st century, really, why do we need the kids to do X, Y, and Z? For what reason? They're not going to do it anyways because they have their phones to do it for them. So what we need to do, and there's no way we're going to compel them to do it. There's no way we're going to ask kids to read books and summarize them for us. They're not going to do that. They are not going to do it. I mean, we were kids one time. We know how that works. So they're going to do the easy way out. So should we find a way to meet them halfway to where we can help them understand the importance of why they're doing this and whatnot, instead of the other way around, where we're basically prohibiting some of these things, because we cannot stop this phenomena, right? We cannot. And it's going to disrupt the job market. I mean, it's already doing it. For the last 20 years, we've been teaching kids to learn how to code. Well, those kids now, their skills are useless. I'm sorry, because AI is much more efficient at it than you are, and it's just getting smarter and smarter. So we have created an entire ecosystem, because I went to Virginia Tech. It's a technical school, very technical. So it doesn't matter what you do. You have to have some kind of understanding of computer science. Like, it's just embedded, whether you're doing sociology or like, it really doesn't matter. So we're all technically, like, competent. The problem is we had a whole generation of kids who were just teaching how to code, right? And now those kids, some of them are already in the job market. Some of them have already started losing their jobs because of AI is way more efficient at this, right? Of course, we still need humans to help guide this, but the workforce is going to shrink. It's the same way as when the coal mines used to hire, a job that 10 people were able to do. A machine would do it with one person with a joystick doing the work, right? So it's just the nature of the beast. But in Gambia, we need to be much smarter about it, though. We need to find a way to have policies. Like, in the United States, when I was at the Government Accountability Office, we had an office called the Innovation Lab. It was already projecting these things 8 years ago, literally looking at what AI was going to do and how it was going to do this, how it's going to disrupt this market, X, Y, and Z. So the serious countries were already expecting this, right? With machine learning and stuff like that. I would like to see some seriousness, policy-wise, from the Gambian government about how to tackle these things, because this is serious stuff. It's really serious business, and we cannot just sit down and be fatalistic about it. We need to do something about it. That's the essence of having a government.
Yeah. So thank you very much for that insight. Obviously, the question was, what tools you are excited about in making you a bit more efficient, if you like, in your job, what you do. You mentioned AI. As you rightly said, Copilot, GPT-5 is now, embedded in Copilot. So what's that telling you? So really, the tools are going to come, and they're going to make people lose their jobs, if that makes sense. It all depends on how you use the technology. And in the Gambian context, we can already see people might, or younger generation might even use this the wrong way, and then you have a bunch of people that have obviously gone through this educational system, and they come out the other end with virtually nothing, because they don't know really what they've gone through, because AI is being used in the wrong way. So in your job, coming back in your job, without take away the tools, I know you go through a lot of data, a lot of contract, extensive, material that you've got to go through to, do your work. There's got to be moments where you're like, oh, this is emotionally challenging. And if you're not made for that, you probably might just throw the book away. You do have those moments doing this job.
Absolutely. Especially with USAID, because we work with disadvantaged people, poor people around the world, right? Mm. When I look at some of these, so I get updates every other day about USAID funding overseas, the US government, what is given to UN agencies and NGOs and stuff. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I look at the list. For example, just my recent trip to Southern Africa and the Horn of Africa, there were 200 bags of sorghum sitting in a warehouse. And I look at this, I'm like, okay, and this is going to expire within a few months. If we don't give these things out to people, give them out, it's going to go to waste. And those people are sitting there waiting for this. If not, they're probably going to malnourish. Some of them will probably even perish. So if you're here, I think it's different when I'm looking at the numbers. Like, it's different. It's very It's very abstract. When I'm out in the field, it hits much. It hits, and I'm from Gambia, from Africa. I understand these things, right? And it's interesting because I'm going to this place as an American, right? And but I'm also seeing and I think we also forget American goodwill, and I think sometimes we forget that because our focus is just on American weapons. America is the largest aid provider in the entire world. There's actually, even if you combine all the other countries combined, to like all of them, America still provides more. Even with the dismantling of USAID, America still provides more aid than any other country in the world because the budget is so massive. England is providing, let's say, what, 3 billion or 4 billion or whatever.
Yeah.
USAID alone is in charge of $78 billion of aid.
Wow.
That is different from the USDA, that's Department of Agriculture, that are also providing food items. That's different from the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, that is actually providing medications and all that stuff overseas. So these are different entities, right? That are all providing these things. And then when I look at the contracts, I'm like, yeah, man, can we make sure this is straightened out and then this goes here, whatever. And then you go there, you see the impact. South Africa, not so much because it's a very advanced country, but you get to Djibouti in East Africa. And then you go to these refugee camps and you understand the importance of these people having this high quality biscuits, high quality grain, high quality vegetable oil, and some of them are laying there and we are not giving it to them. And if it doesn't get to them on time, I mean, we're talking about catastrophe because these people are living in refugee camps. There are no jobs. There's nothing. There is no survival. And some of them have been there for a decade or more. And the entire survival rests on the U.S. government, USAID providing the food items. Yeah. So, no, it gets heavy because you're dealing with human beings. It's not abstract anymore, right? Being in America, dealing with the papers is very abstract. To be honest, I'm not going to lie to you, right? Everybody becomes a statistic. Once you go out in the field and see the food items, see the people, it hits different. You just kind of come out of that and be the same person. I mean, you understand the impact of it. So it gets heavy. It gets really heavy sometimes. It really gets heavy. It really does. And, I've also worked on projects here where we look at the role of the U.S. Small Business Administration and their relationship between the historically Black colleges and universities in America. That was one of my first jobs that I worked on when I was at the U.S. Government Accountability Office. And looking at disparities the U.S. government spends at these top universities compared to the historically Black colleges. I mean, sometimes you just want to pull your hair out, which I don't have any anymore. But then I just want to pull your hair out. And then, you want to make sure that you're providing the valuable information that the government needs to make sure things are scaled up so that they will get to the same standards, or at least a decent standard that makes sense.
Wow, interesting. I'm sure coming from the Gambia and being in the United States and doing the kind of work, like you said, some of these, a decision could have a lasting impact on a country like Djibouti, as an example. I'm sure you appreciate this coming from a developing country. How obviously majority of people live on the poverty line in the Gambia. We have our own challenges. You're a political science lecturer. There's your background. So that shifts me to the Gambia. Currently, there's been a lot of political activities. So very, very interesting political scene happening in the Gambia. So we're going to shift over to that. Having gone through your background, how you started in the Gambia, and then transitioning into the United States education and your career, and what you're doing as a lecturer at the university, as well as a program analyst for USAID, who obviously work overseas. But we're going to bring you back down to where it all started, the Gambia, from the political perspective, because that's what you know. What's your take on what's happening in the Gambian political context in terms of the biggest political opposition party, which is the United Democratic Party, which on paper it's the only tangible group that can actually change the status quo. But we've seen in the Gambia, without a united front in terms of opposition parties, we've seen what's happened. It looks like there's kind of a fragmentation in the biggest opposition party in the Gambia. What's your take on what's happening, happening in the Gambia at the moment? Yeah.
Sure. We got to go back a little bit to 2017 after the impasse when UDP basically, when Jammeh was kicked out. UDP came in, I would say, in 2018. 2017 actually, they took over everybody, the whole parliament, they were the majority. There was a lot of goodwill. They basically ran all the municipalities, basically everywhere. When people tell me, Silver Sonko, he's from Enugu, where did he come from? He came from UDP. Where did, our deputy KKB and all those people, they were the ones running South. Barrow came from UDP, right? So from the get-go, what you saw was UDP understood they had the whole government, and that was factual. They had the whole thing alone. There was no opposition because, really, like you said, there was no formal opposition in the country except for UDP during the struggle. PDOI had sympathizers, but really not a base. Mama Kane had some voters, but those were naturally APRC people, to be honest, who just defected. And then Ahmadba had a constituency. That's it in Salomon. But that was that. We really didn't have opposition. UDP was the only opposition in the country. So when Jammeh left, UDP became the de facto main political party in the country.
Yeah.
In 2019, 2020, they decided they don't want that anymore. Why? Because of a cult of the individual. If it is not Usain Dabo, nobody else. Think about how insane it is. Barrow was the president from UDP. They wanted Barrow to step down so that Usain Dabo will become president. Think about it for a second. Just really start using our brains here, to be honest. Barrow was the president. He won the election. Usain Dabo was in the opposition. Well, no, he was not even in opposition. He was his vice president. And they wanted Barrow to step down so that Usain Dabo would become the president. Where does that even exist? Where does that even happen? In which country? Again, that's when I started realizing UDP was not a political party. It was a party of one, the cult of the person. Because Barrow was not going to basically step down to give Dabo the reins to run the country.
Can I interject in that? When you say they wanted Barrow to step down for Dabo to take over, is this post the coalition government? Or?
Yes. This is, because the coalition government collapsed in 2019, basically, right? It was done by 2019, right? Yeah. We had a whole UDP government at that point. That's what we had. UDP had the opportunity to run the country for at least a generation. They did. There was no opposition in the country. There was none. They had the presidency. But they didn't want to make the president the standard bearer. They wanted Dabo to be the standard bearer. Right. Who would, what president would do that? Where, in any mature democracy, a president who wins an election becomes the de facto leader of that party. That's actually how it works. In America, it doesn't matter. Hillary Clinton ran against Obama. The moment Obama won the presidency, he became the leader of the Democratic Party. He actually appoints the leader of the Democratic National Congress Committee. That's how it works in America. Because America is different from England. Gambia was like England up till republicanism in 1970, right? We went the way of America. So we have a presidential system. UDP had the presidency in Adama Barrow. They didn't want to renominate him because why? They wanted Usain Dabo to be president. Barrow wasn't going to step down and give Dabo the power. That would not even make sense. So what happened? A fraction, like you said, a fragmentation happened. Yeah. A new faction was created out of UDP with Adama Barrow. Let's not fool ourselves. Adama Barrow, the faction was mostly UDP. Literally, that's what it was, right?
Yeah.
The deputies and all those people came from UDP. The Dembo Bay forces and all those people, these are stalwarts of UDP. These are some serious people, right?
UDP, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2021, where we are today. Sorry, 2025. And they're facing the same problem. Another faction of UDP is leaving the party again. And UDP is they're creating an environment where they might end up being a party of a fringe party if they're not careful. Because the way politics work is that you have the incumbent, Barrow. Barrow has already created a coalition. Talib Bensouda leaving UDP is not going to help Talib. I don't think so. But I don't think UDP is better off for it either, because fragmentation does not help. What we need to get Barrow out, if you want to get Barrow out, is a united front, a coalition. Having fractions within UDP itself does not help. I think I blame the leadership now, because you have all these talents in the party, from Talib to Youngs to Landing Sane in Mansa Concord, the Almami Tals, I mean, these are all people who UDP is actually the only political party that actually has a bench, a deep bench of qualified people who could actually contest for the presidency. No political party does. No political party does. You have LJ Dabo and those people too, right? And LJ and them also had to leave, because you understand that the fringe of the UDP, these are deeply unserious people. They're not serious about winning elections. They're more interested in the party of one and literally fighting with people. I'm like, what are you gaining from this? You have to find a way to bring people in. That's what Barrow is doing. That's what Talib is trying to do. Why can't you do the same? I don't understand their politics. It's very confusing to me. You didn't win the last election. Now, your job for the last 4 years or 5 years should be to convince people to join the party. But you couldn't even hold the base together. Now we have the Kemo Bojangs and Ibrahim Dibas. I mean, you can call these people names, whatever you want, but these people they gave a lot to UDP. And I mean a whole lot. These are serious people. And these are not people, these are not Fanjawas or anything. They really care about the country. You need to find a way to make sure these people don't leave the party. And I feel like every election cycle, they have made sure that they actually are pushing people out of the party. And that does not help UDP as a party. With regards to Adama Barrow, I think the next election is not going to be what happened the last election. There's no way Adama Barrow is going to blow, he's going to get 200,000 votes more than the next candidate. That's not going to happen. Definitely not.
Yeah.
But I would rather be Barrow if today. If the elections were held today, Barrow was probably going to win, because we have a simple majority. I mean, we had this debate in 2020 here in the Gunjur with the whole new constitution, that a simple majority favors Barrow.
Yeah.
A divided opposition helps Barrow.
Yeah. So that actually brings me to my next question. Given what obtains in the Gambia in the political scene, in terms of looking at 2026, given the fragmented opposition party, from what I'm seeing, it's going to be very difficult to actually form a coalition opposition unit to contest against the incumbent. Given currently, as we speak now, what's happening, if nothing has changed to have a united opposition front to contest against the incumbent President Barrow, who do you think is likely going to come out on top in 2026? That was going to be my last question before I pass you on to Kaddy, but you've touched on that. Yeah.
With a fragmented opposition, it's simple. It's not even complicated. Barrow is winning that. I mean, that's not. If this is the thing with politics, though. It's not an actual science. We the political scientists study the art of politics. It's an art. And politics is fluid. It can change any day, right? So as of today, I'm speaking basically, if the elections were held today, Barrow is going to win, hands down. Talib could form a loose coalition, but the votes are not there. That's the problem, right? The votes really are not. right? Especially Talib is going to take from UDP too. Dabo got 28% of the vote the last election. There's no way Dabo is getting 28% of the votes this time with UDP fractured. He will lucky if he has 20% of the vote. Talib is going to get votes from that Barrow too. Because what people fail to understand the last election was Barrow had a coalition against Dabo. That's what the last election was about.
Right.
It was everybody against Dabo. Like literally. That's literally what the last election was about. People in Churchilltown, for example, these are Halifa Saleh's neighbors. They've been voting for this guy for at least 20 years. They decided to give their votes to Barrow because they would rather vote for Barrow than have Dabo win. If UDP were a serious political party, they will understand that Dabo cannot win the presidency in the Gambia. He just cannot. That's just fact. Whatever you want to call it, whether it's bias or tribalism, whatever, it doesn't matter. That's what it is. But he's not winning it. As a political party, your job is to make sure you win elections. Ousainou Darboe is not that vehicle. He's a good guy, a Gambian hero, all that stuff. The people have rejected him time after time. They need to find a different alternative to Darboe. And they have that in their party. That's what confuses me. They're actually the only ones who have that. All the other political parties don't. If Barrow steps down, who's going to take over NPP? There's no one there. And it was actually exciting to see UDP have this debate within the party of standard bearer. I mean, you don't even have those conversations at PDYS. You actually had this debate within UDP, right? You had people challenging Ousainou Darboe within the party, right? Which is great. But I think they need to understand one thing. Ousainou Darboe cannot win the presidency in the Gambia. If it is Barrow against Darboe, that's simple. The Gambians are going to give it to Barrow again. It's simple. It's not even rocket science. It's simple as that. So, and what worries me now is that with a fractured coalition, they're not going to form a united front. And there's no way UDP is joining coalitions where Ousainou Darboe is not the head. That's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Right? Let's forget about it. So what do we have here? Well, another Barrow term. Simple as that. Simple as that. But this could also render UDP, they could really turn into an NCP or something at some point, because they're just going to become a very small faction. Because if Talib can pull 15% of the votes the next election, Talib becomes the main opposition party candidate. Because what happens, Ousainou Darboe is probably not going to run after this in 2031. He's not running. Definitely not. He's not going to run. So what's going to happen? Talib already, look at what Talib has been able to do within UDP. He left. What Talib has actually been able to get out of UDP, Barrow wasn't even able to do that. He got a whole region in his pocket, literally, right? He was already building an infrastructure within the party. I didn't even know he had that much infrastructure. So he is able to actually take all these people out of UDP. And what do you think is going to happen if he loses this election? And he's young. Talib is my age. He's barely 40. Yeah. So he's going to run the next election. And then he's going to be the main candidate. He's going to be the main opposition against Barrow. So even if Talib doesn't win this election, UDP are playing with fire. And again, they had all the power. All you needed to do was discipline and keep people within the party. And literally, we could have had a one-party system for the foreseeable future, because the three main parties now we're talking about, that is UDP, Talib, and NPP, all of them came from UDP. Yeah. You know what I mean? Right?
It's the same.
Thing. But again, it's not like in any mature democracy, UDP has been able to build a foundation and a base that other parties have not been able to build, and a resilience that did not exist in the other parties. And they learned their lesson when they gave us Barrow in 2016. They created and basically developed and nurtured a lot of talent within the party. And any of these people, we can talk about them as presidential material. In Barrow's camp, who else can you look at and say, oh, that's a presidential material? Not really. But UDP, you have all these people. But for some reason, lack of discipline, lack of just coordination, and finding a way to care more about the party than an individual, they've literally destroyed what would have been actually their day in the sun, right? Post Jammeh, it was UDP. There was no opposition, because that was goodwill, because UDP were the ones that were specifically targeted by Jammeh. There was no political party that was specifically targeted the way UDP were targeted. And when Jammeh left, UDP everything happened. People wanted UDP to run the country, and they decided to basically destroy that. And to run the country without Usain Dabo, let's be careful here. The government people rejected Usain Dabo. Usain Dabo should have just stepped aside, let him have a fresh, standard bearer. Let him compete. The young Dabos, the Landing Songos, the Landing Sanes and the Lamin Sanes, and the Talibs. Let them duke it out. But a new generation, a new face would have helped UDP a lot. Usain Dabo is not a champion. He's not going to renew that election. He's a hero. He's a good human being. I don't know him personally. Probably a good father too, but he's not winning the presidency. I'm sorry, with all due respect.
Very interesting perspective from a political scientist. Obviously, very big, bold statements made there in terms of what UDP can and cannot do. So we thought we'll obviously cover Gambian politics because we have a political scientist as our guest. We cannot talk about personal journeys without actually talking about what you know best, which is political science. Hence why we actually covered some perspective onto in Gambian politics. We've been on
and I also want to say, even though I say I don't know Senator Dabo personally, I've interacted with him on a personal level when I was at the courthouse. He was one of those. He's just a good human being. I need to emphasize that, right? So I remember I was a teenager. I was like one of those young court clerks. I mean, the Gambian lawyers were rude as hell. Like literally, they were not nice people. But Senator Dabo really was. He was one of those few people who will just come and sit down and just talk to you, wanted to know about you. Maybe that's just a politician in him. I don't know, but that was something that I remember. That Usain Dabo, Badu Conte, and Awasise Sabali. These were just class acts. Especially for young people like Usain Dabo was a politician. That was a big deal. He was a lawyer too. They will come with their gowns or whatever, but he was very down to earth. Just a good human being. But we're talking about the presidency here. And if Barrow needs to go, Usain Dabo is not a vehicle. We need a different one.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. for that insight into Gambian politics. I'll pass you over to my co-host, Kaddy, to take us to the next segment. Hopefully that is probably the taking us towards the end of the program. Over to you, Kaddy.
Yeah, thanks, Lamin. Thank you, Saul, for that powerful insight into the Gambian political landscape currently. I did tell Lamin I don't get involved, but sometimes it's good to hear the different perspectives of what's going on and what people are thinking actually. So really, really good. So the next part, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna read out a statement, and you're gonna tell me if it's a fact or fiction. Is that okay?
Let's do it.
Cool. Before we start that though, Lamin, are there any comments in the chats on Facebook or any questions for Saul?
Yeah, let me have a look. There's been quite a lot of comments, but
whenever we invoke UDP, we're always gonna have comments. Whenever we get into government politics.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, there's a few obviously. Let me see some comments. So one from Lamin Fofana. He probably knows you from very long. He says, "So that Saul has been a while." So Lamin Fofana, he's from Gunjur, but he lives in Italy. He probably knows you. So he's So he said he knows you very well. Big up Saul. Lamin Fofana is from Gunjur, but he lives in Italy at the moment.
Okay.
So I'm just looking at. Abdurrahman Jabang says Saul is a great guy, Now Yankuba Manjang said, I disagree, bro. Don't you think Talib's candidacy can be a blessing in disguise for the UDP? I think from the political perspective, that is probably the only comment. And he then added on, say, KMC alone cannot give victory to Talib. So what's your
no, and he's absolutely right that KMC cannot deliver Talib the presidency. I don't think Talib is winning the presidency as is today. I don't think we shouldn't fool ourselves, right? We have to be honest, right? It's an exciting campaign, but this cannot help UDP. UDP is losing votes, not gaining them.
Mm.
It cannot be a blessing in disguise. Look, for example, in 2016, if Mama Kandeh didn't run, Jammeh was going to win. All those people came from Mama Kandeh. And how many thousand votes? Almost 90,000 votes. Jammeh lost by 18,000 votes.
Yeah.
Okay. Talib is basically the Mama Kandeh of UDP. So there's no way that UDP is going to benefit from this. It is not. I don't think Talib is, as of today, I don't think he's winning the presidency. I don't think they even believe that he can win the presidency as is today. But UDP could be in a position where they might not even get more votes than Talib. And I think I've told this to people and they think I'm playing. No, I'm not.
That's a bold statement.
It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. The last election, we also have to remember, 28% of the people who voted for Dabo, these were not all the base. These were also people who wanted an alternative. And to them, this guy was the alternative. Dabo was the alternative. Okay, you think those people are going to come back and vote for Dabo? No. They have an alternative now in Talib. And you combine that with the base, UDP is going to hemorrhage votes. Again, if the elections were today, I would rather be, Barrow. I would rather be Barrow because he's in a much better position to win this than any of these, any of the people vying for the presidency. So I don't think this helps UDP at all.
Right.
I don't think it helps Talib. Talib would have been a much stronger candidate if he was the UDP standard bearer, without a doubt.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's up for debate.
Follow on to that. Another viewer, Keba Lang Sane, said you made a very good political assessment that's perhaps obvious to all except for the diehard UTP. 2026 is Barrow's to lose.
It is. I mean, and it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game, right? And okay. For many people, it's the same in America, right? For many people, politics is an emotionally charged thing, right? So for some of us who study this, we have to literally remove ourselves from the emotions because we're also human beings who are involved in this. So when I look at politics, I look at it from a very clear-eyed perspective. I'm not telling people what they want to hear. I'm doing my analysis based on my understanding of Gambian politics and the numbers. The math is there. The math is very simple. Ousainou Darboe is not winning the presidency as is today. Talib is not either. I'm sorry. If the elections were held today, Adama Barrow was going to win. Of course, he wasn't. He's not going to get like what he had the last time. But that doesn't matter. It's a simple majority. He could get 40% and he still wins the presidency. You know what I mean, right? So it's a simple majority. And I don't see in any world where Barrow is not getting 40% of the votes. I just don't see that as of today. Things can change. A scandal could happen. Something could happen. The landscape could change. All these things can happen, right? Because we are all human beings. Life happens. Things change. But if the elections were held today, Barrow is winning this. And I think UDP, I don't know. Sometimes I don't understand what they're... Sometimes I don't even know whether they have a tactic. Because if you want to win, you have to convince people to come and join you. You're losing people. You're losing people. And the people you're losing, now you're fighting with those people too. I don't understand that. So the people who are living UDP now, the Kemos and all those people, and the Nana Makedas or whatever, they're attacking those people. I'm like, no. It has to be... Look at what the Barrow was able to do. He was able to bring Dr. Cisse, his nemesis. He was able to bring, Sabali. And the last election, he was also... Barrow doesn't even use that tactic. He's just convincing people, and basically some of them throwing cash at him too, but he's actually convincing people to join him. And he's been... the last election, what happened? He was able to bring people like Rambo, Dembo by Force and all these people, and these are effective communicators. And people listen to these people. So your people that you raised, UDP raised Talib and these people, the Kemo Bojans and all these people, the Ibrahim Dibas from the party. They raised these people. And now they're attacking these people. Why can't you just find a way to convince them to find a way to get together for the betterment of the party and by extension, the betterment of the country? I don't understand. The tactic really confuses me. I just don't get it. From a political perspective. From a normal human emotional perspective, I get it. It's personal. politics can be very personal, and it's like a sport, right? Nobody can convince me that Ronaldo is not the best player in the world. It doesn't matter. You can say whatever you want. I don't care. That's how we consume sport. It's like it's a team sport, right? And we cannot even brutally, honestly look at our political systems. And a few days ago, I was on Twitter talking about how PDOIS should be torn into an NGO. I grew up on Bido was next to my house. I grew up with Uncle Sidious kids and stuff. My orientation is PDOIS. But PDOIS is done and dusted. But some people are like, no, you don't understand. I'm like, no, we have to be honest. These are the facts. Doi is done. Because it's a cult of two people too. And those people are gone, the party is gone. UDP is a cult of one person, Usain Dabo. Without Usain Dabo, they're going to collapse. Literally, it's not any different. Because people are going to have an alternative that's not UDP.
Fair analysis. Kaddy, over to you.
Right, okay. Should we move on now before we get another question on politics?
We've got more comments, so I don't know whether we can. Obviously, we've been on there for a while. The good doctor is a busy man, and so we've got loads of comments coming in, but I don't think we can read all of them.
Yeah, I'll probably have to go in like 15 minutes. I have to go pick up the kids from school.
That's right.
Right, okay. So we're gonna try and wrap this up very quickly then. Right, so I'm gonna read a statement out, and you tell me if it's fact or fiction, please. Is that all right?
Go for it.
Cool. In most parliamentary systems, the head of government is separate from the head of state.
That is correct.
Why is that?
So in the parliamentary system, the head of government, because usually what you have, let's say for example in Gambia when we had the parliamentary system, the head of government was Jawara, and the head of state technically was what's his name again? The Governor General, who was what was his name again? Safari Mangsingati, right? So and in many of these, so in the same thing for England, right? It's a perfect example. They had a parliamentary system. So the Queen is, but that's mostly ceremonial though in many of these cases, right? The head of state is a ceremonial position, whereas the head of government is basically the elected person to run the country. Yeah.
Great. Right. Program analysts just crunch numbers all day.
Not really. I agree with the facts, but not with the estimates of the fact, right? So yes, we crunch a lot of numbers, to be honest, but that's not all we do all day. You have to be a good communicator to be a program analyst, because if you crunch all these numbers, then what are you gonna do with those numbers? You have to be able to communicate that to people, whether in writing or when you're testifying on Capitol Hill in front of Congress or somebody, right? So no, it involves a lot of writing. You have to be a good writer, somebody who can articulate their thoughts, and somebody, of course, numbers are definitely good. I mean, data is like a good part of what you do, but it's much more than that. Definitely much more than that.
Right. So you need strong communication skills to be a great analyst.
Absolutely, you have to be. I mean, it's just part of it. You cannot be a good analyst. You cannot be a good analyst without being a good communicator. Because when you analyze all this stuff, then what are you gonna do with that stuff? You have to communicate it to somebody, right? Yeah. Whether in writing or whatever. But you have to be a good communicator. You have to be able to clearly explain your thoughts. And to be a program analyst too, even the communication style is different. We use the active voice when we write and communicate in these things, and also we do the deductive style, not the inductive style of writing as well. So you put everything up, with your charged paragraphs, and then you go bam, bam, bam. Like it's a very different kind of way of writing and communicating. So it's high level, and then you distill things for clarity is very important.
Cool. Data always tells the full story.
No, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Oh, no. I can do whatever. So this is the thing. I can do whatever I want with data. Really. I can do whatever story I want too.
You can manipulate it.
Oh, you can. Yeah. I mean, actually, any data I get, I have to manipulate it anyways for people to make sense of it. But no, really, not really. And that's why program analysts come into play. because the data is there. Then what we're trying to do is to make sense of the data and then supplement where the data is lacking with maybe a testimonial interview. So basically, program analysts just look at it this way. They're just researchers. It's very academic. You look at the data, analyze it, then you interview people to make sure that everything corroborates. Basically, that's what it is, That's literally what it is. But no, the data doesn't tell the full story. Absolutely not.
Okay. All democracies use the same voting system.
Oh, no. Absolutely not. Yeah. Absolutely not. Hey, we have
marbles in the Gambia, eh?
Maybe in the Gambia.
We have the best. We have the marbles, and I hope we keep using the marbles, though. I hope so. I hope we don't mess with it. I just hope we don't mess with it. Because once we start messing the marbles, we might be getting into some really, really murky territory here. Like some really serious cheating will be happening in that country once we leave the marble system.
Political ideologies are fixed and never evolve over time.
Oh, they always change. They're very fluid. Yeah, they're very fluid. And one ideology that makes sense this generation to some people, like for example, today, what does conservatism even means, or liberalism? Even in the British system, not just America, right? So right now, y'all are basically losing the Tories are gone. They're becoming the Reform Party, right? So they're basically shifting more of this territory of nativism, which is very different from Winston Churchill and even Boris Johnson was not even that crazy. So the liberalism of Jeremy Corbyn, very different from Tony Blair, right? So ideologies shift based on the necessity and based on the environment. And again, human beings are deciding this. We decide things based on emotion, arbitrary whims, and those things change, fluctuate, all the time. When I read Jawara's book, I just couldn't reconcile how liberal Jawara was and where Gambia is today. It's crazy how just within a generation or within 3 generations, we've seen this massive shift of conservatism in the Gambia that never existed before. Even though Jawara's generation, most of their parents were born in the 1800s. But the liberalism that, think about it this way. When Jawara led PPP and became the first premier of the Gambia at independence, many people don't know this, but Jawara was a Christian.
Yeah. I remember reading the books on that. Yeah.
No, he was.
He was.
Christian. J.C. Faye was a Christian. All the 3 major leading politicians in the Gambia were all Christian at that time. That would never happen today. We just have to be honest, right? Because the ideology shifted, the politics shifted, and Gambia is more conservative today than, religiously anyways, than it was during that time, right? So ideologies are not fixed. They fluctuate, they move, they permeate. It's just because that's just what humans do. We change, we evolve. Our tastes change. That's what it is.
We switch anytime.
All the time.
Oh, thank you for that. Lamin?
Yeah, thank you, Kaddy. We're getting very close to the end now, so I think as part of the fun bit, you sound like a very busy man. Looks like there's not enough hours in the day for you. How do you from a very obviously hectic day, either as a lecturer or as a program analyst for USAID? How do you?
There are 2 things I do, and so I go to the gym every evening.
Oh, that's great! Like keep doing that, please.
Yeah, so I spend 2 hours in the gym every evening. Every evening I do. Yeah. But I know this might sound weird to people, but reading really helps me. So I read every day, and I write every day too. For me, and I've also picked up gardening lately, on my free time, so I have a massive garden. I have watermelons in my backyard and all that stuff. It's really cool. Yeah, I find all of these things to be therapeutic, right? In a sense. For the gym, for me, it's kind of an out of body experience. To be honest, when I'm there, I have my earpieces on.
Yeah.
I'm just listening to music or podcasts, and I'm just doing my thing. I'm not talking to anyone. I'm not making friends. So I have gym buddies, but I don't even talk to them when we're in the gym. I'm just working out. Like, that's what I'm there to do. Like, my mind is just focused on that.
Yeah.
And then the reading is just habitual. It's something I've been doing for a long time. So it's like praying. Like, I do it every day, right? And I have to. Even if I'm gonna write a sentence, I have to write something.
Mhm.
The way I look at gardening, I wrote about this actually a few months ago about, and the title of the article was "Anything that cannot die cannot be beautiful," right? And
I think we published that on Google Online.
right.
Yes.
And for me, it's just going to the garden, growing things, seeing them mature to a point, and then dying, and then coming back to life again. It's a cathartic and liberating experience to just see that, and it explains the natural progression of life for all of us, right? So life can be stressful, but we gotta find a way and have those outlets where we're breathing, we're in our own selves, right? And for me, reading and writing gives me the solitude. The gym, even though people are around, is the solitude, and I need it. I need that distance from the real world. So I need to get into that vacuum a little bit, and then come back and face reality in the morning, work, take kids to school, take them to data and all that stuff. But that is the essence of our being, isn't it?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So following on to that, do you have a guilty pleasure when you're not doing serious work?
Yes. Documentaries. And also watching videos, like old songs, like really old songs. Because now they have all the stuff on YouTube that we didn't have before.
Yeah.
So growing up, my mom used to she had a cassette, the cassette tapes and stuff. So there were these songs, Mandinka and Wolof songs. Recently, someone shared a song with me that really just brought back a lot of memories. You probably remember the song "Sing Calling Calling Sing." Yeah. So I think he was from Bakau too. His last name was
Mandinka
Jammeh.
song, isn't it?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was from Bakau. Kaddy Jammeh from Bakau, actually.
Yeah, but Jammeh.
Yeah, Bubakar Jammeh, something like that.
Yeah,
So that's,
yeah.
I didn't even know the name of the artist growing up, right? I knew my mom had this cassette where there were a lot of songs, Wolof, Mandinka, Chon Seka, Yande Kodusen, and all these people.
Wow.
And Jalang Demba, Waya Sasu, I know you remember that song too. So these are songs that really bring, it's like nostalgia, right? So when I'm writing, that's what I listen to, and folk music, like music of the 60s, like the protest movement, because they're mostly like they're this is poetry, right?
Yeah.
So that's my guilty pleasure. Like, these are things like I can, when I'm in it, I am in it. This is my world, and this is something I do. Like, yeah.
That's interesting. So do you have what's your favorite song?
I don't have one. I have favorite songs, but
Okay.
I don't have a favorite song per se, but I definitely have favorite songs, and one of those would be "The Boxer" by Simon and Garfunkel. This was a band. I mean, Paul Simon was a band in the 60s about, this was the time of the civil rights movement in America. When I listen to The Boxer, it reminds me so much of my life, right? So The Boxer is a story of a kid, in New York, who grew up under really tough circumstances and was able to triumph. And he called himself the Boxer because he says the Boxer would basically get knocked down time and time and time and time again.
Okay, so.
But they will never stop because they still believe there's a tomorrow, right? So my first article visiting Gambia in 2015, almost a decade after leaving the country, I titled it after the Boxer. The resilience of the Boxer, the mindset of the Boxer, right? Because we all came here with nothing.
Yeah.
We worked whatever jobs were thrown at us, right? And these were things we probably didn't have done in the Gambia. But just being alone here in the wilderness, in the Virginia Highlands, alone, trying to eke out a living. I mean, the Boxer resonated, right? For me, from an intellectual point, and just listening to it, it motivates me to be a better person. But one song that I listen to religiously is Beatilo by Tara. That is just I watched the video, the choreography, everything about it. It was just dope, like just seeing the guy. It was at his finest, right? Starting at his finest, So it depends on the day too. Like my mood fluctuates when it comes to music, and sometimes the whole week I'll be listening to one song. That's it. Like I'll be listening to one song, and that's all I'm listening to. But yeah, I have a very range. My taste is very broad when it comes to music. I'm a connoisseur of music, because I like poetry, and music reminds me of I mean, they're all poets anyway. So but that's what it is.
Yeah, a lot of our songs are poetic, especially from our part of the world. So, lovely. Over to you, Kaddy, for your final segment.
Just on that day, Saul, you live in Texas.
I do.
So, you know what my question is going to be. Do you like country music?
Some country, yes, I do.
Some country, okay.
So they're different kind of country, right? So when I was in Gambia, I started listening to country in the Gambia, actually, not here. So because there's the country that they call honky tonk. That's like the redneck country. I don't like that. I like the country that is closer to pop music, kind of like Taylor Swift, that kind of vibe. It makes more sense. The honky tonk country is very redneck, and the stuff they're talking about sometimes doesn't even appeal to me. It's very ridiculous. I don't make sense of it. I mean, just like new rap. I don't listen to new rap. I don't see the point, right? It just doesn't serve me any purpose. I can listen to Tupac any day or Jay-Z. I can listen to lyrics, but I cannot listen to like, whatever they have now, whatever they call it, the trap music or whatever. I just can't relate. Maybe I'm just getting older, I guess, and my tastes, I haven't refined it to get up to date with the times. But yeah, I mean, I like country music. I was listening to country music in the Gambia, even if I came to America. So
right. Okay. All right. So I know time's running out and you need to go pick the kids up. If you were not doing this today, if you're not doing what you do today, as in your career and everything that you do, what would you be doing?
I'll be somewhere in Kendin Sable in Tuyereng with my Mindico farm. You know what a Mindico is?
What's Mindico?
You know Mindico, right?
Mindico.
I don't know Mindico. What is Mindico? What am I missing out here?
I think that
he's from Bacau.
Only around in the Combo South area, though, right?
He's from Bacau.
Yeah, true that. I don't even see
I'm from Newtown. Hello, correction. I'm from Newtown. Bacau, Newtown.
Oh, man. No, so, yeah, I actually don't even see that anymore. It used to be, it was a wild fruit, actually, in, Tujarang, Tanje, Sanyang, those places. It was in the wild, and it was great. Mindico, they mix it up, you put sugar in it. Yeah, I've been asked this question before, and my answer still remains the same. I'll be in Kendi Sable, which is a part of Tujarang, very secluded, with my Mindico farm and just writing, basically, just reading and writing. Literally, that's it. Just reading and writing.
Sounds like
if I can have, say it again?
Yeah, sounds like an ideal life, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I'm growing whatever I'm eating and all that stuff, and then walking to the beach in Tujarang every other day or every day or every evening. But for me, the reading and writing is essential it nourishes my soul. I enjoy it. And if I wasn't reading and writing doing quantitative analysis for the government, if I could get paid to just stay at home and just read and write, I mean, of course, I work from home, I work remote, so I still work from home, but I'm not in Tujarang. But if I was somewhere in Tujarang, in a farm where my job was just to read and write whatever I want to read and write, with nothing else to think about, that would be my ideal job. Back home in the Gambia. Definitely.
Cool.
Lovely.
Great. So just another final question from me. If someone's looking to become a program analyst, what advice would you give them?
Academically, I would say math and English are very important. Actually, I don't see how you could be a good analyst without understanding, at least, in the Anglophone world, right? The Francophone world might be different. You might need French. But in the Anglophone world, having a good command of the English language is very important. and be really good at be very analytical, be very good at math. Be able to do math, statistics, specifically statistics, because that's mostly what we use. But to be good at statistics, and I get asked this question a lot about people, like from people like career paths and stuff.
Yeah.
For me, I was able to. I'm very lucky. I was able to do something that I wanted to do as a child, right? Not out of necessity, but because this is what I wanted to do, and I've been very lucky to have the support. And since I came to America, I only paid for one semester of school. Everything
Yeah.
else, I had scholarships all the way to the PhD, right? So, and unlike other people who come to America and then they have to take care of the whole family back home, I didn't have the same pressures, right? My older siblings did, I did not. So my focus was just on education. So everybody's path is going to be different. And I'm not
Yeah.
telling people to just follow your dreams. That's a very American way of saying things. We can be ridiculous in the real world. But I was able to do it. And if you're able to do that, I would say pursue whatever dreams you want to pursue. But to be a good program or policy analyst, or just an analyst, you have to have a good command of the English language, and you have to take, your math should be really good, and you have to just take your academics seriously.
Cool. Great. Thank you. Right. So, any final words from you? Any final advice from you, Saul, before we wrap it up?
No, I just want to say thanks for having me on. This is great. We've been planning this for a little bit now. And but I would say anybody who's interested in what I do, you can always reach out to me. I have a LinkedIn page. I'm not on Facebook. I have a Facebook page, but it's deactivated right now because it's political season, and I tend to stay away from from Facebook during this time of the year. But I'm available if anybody want to chat about my career paths, or how we could, how I could, be of any service. I'm definitely available. My parting words are, and this something is not new anyways. I've said these things before too, that generations of Gambians one day to come would really ask us, all of us, what have we done with our time? And my wish and hope is that we could say that we've made the Gambia the best country possible. We've made sure that even in our disagreements, we know that it's passionate, but it's about love for country. And I think for me, going back to the words in our anthem, to me, that should be our summons to the Gambia ever grow.
Thank you. Thank you, Saul. Those are very powerful parting words from tonight's show. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And well, it's morning your end or afternoon. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Viewers, so I'll hand it over to my co-host, Lamin, to wrap up. But I hope you guys did manage to take something away from the conversation tonight. We did touch on politics. We did touch on the USAID, International Development Program Analyst. So we have touched on a broad a lot of topics. Hopefully, if any of you want to follow up with Dr. Sol, like he said, he's available. He's got a LinkedIn page. He's not on Facebook at the moment because of the political landscape that's going on in the Gambia. So, but you can reach out to him, and I'm sure he will be willing to connect for our conversation. So, thank you, Lamin.
Thank you, Kaddy. Thank you, Saul. He preferred to be called Saul. That was episode 5 of the profile show with Lamin and Kaddy. Our guest was Dr. Sulayman Njie, a political scientist, as well as a program analyst for USAID. The aim of this show is to bring people who are doing well in their various career paths with a view to inspiring the younger generation, not just the younger generation, because some people might still be in their, older age, but they want to change career. Everybody needs an inspiration here and there. So bringing people to this show to have a conversation with them, how it all started for them from their teenage, life to where they are now, with a view to inspiring the younger generation. That's what this show is all about. Today's show had a political scientist, so therefore we touch on some Gambian, politics as well. His life as a political scientist, as a program analyst for USAID. We hope you've taken something away from this conversation. Until we come your way again, episode 6, we'll aim to have Dr. Ismail Baji, who is another fantastic fella doing great things for our country when it comes to healthcare. So episode 6 is lined up to have Dr. Ismail Baji. We hope you enjoy this show, and thank you very much, Dr. Njie and my co-host Kaddy, for a very, very, very long conversation. But I hope our viewers, it could have been a lot more engaging because we had a lot of comments, but Doctor is a very busy man, so we had to let him go to attend to other businesses. Until we come your way again in episode 6 next month, this show comes to you once a month. So the next episode 6 would be in November with Dr. Ismail Baji, as we said. Wherever you are, have a lovely, lovely day or evening or morning, wherever you might be. And thank you for being in this program for us throughout when we started till now. We hope you've enjoyed it and you've taken some very, very valuable stuff from it. And thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.